Hi there, I'm Shawn. I'm the diversion officer in Oakville. And I'm here to present our diversion program. Oh, shameless plug for our service, Halton Regional Police. If you're looking for a job, come on over. For those of you that are geographically challenged and don't know where Halton is, we're nestled in between Hamilton, Peel, and Kitchener-Waterloo. Turn it over to Ilana.
Okay. Actually, this Halton Youth Justice Program mission statement was just said in our introduction, so we can skip that. So basically, our youth offices exist under the umbrella of our community mobilization bureaus that are in each of our districts. Within this bureau, there's the high school liaison officers, there's also education service liaison officers, and community mobilization officers, and we all work together to serve our community. Each of these bureaus, one's located in Oakville, one's in Burlington, and one's in Milton, which covers Acton, Georgetown, Halton Hills as well. And each youth office is comprised of a detective constable as well as a social worker. And that partnership is very purposeful. It allows for a very nice collaboration most of the time. So the Halton Youth Justice Program is guided by the principles of the Youth Criminal Justice Act, which is a federal statute. Basically, we try to, this program is designed to hold the youth accountable for their offense, but at the same time avoiding the court process and the potential for a youth criminal record as well. So the program, the program also is designed to address the underlying behaviors or the underlying issues behind the youth's behavior. And if the youth is successful during this process, then the original charge is not laid.
So the program criteria is outlined, essentially the youth has to be between the ages of 12 and 17 years old, has committed a criminal code offense. We do not divert for provincial offenses. The case has to be court-worthy, because that's the hook for getting the kids to buy into the contract. In dealing with the youth, the officer has to determine whether or not the youth has accepted responsibility for his or her offense, and the youth has to be willing to participate in the contract conditions that are set out. It's also important to say that the victim at the end needs to proceed with the charge as well, be willing to proceed. There is an exception. When it comes to parents that are having problems dealing with their kids, I know officers like to use the diversion program so that the youth can get some support. In the past, I've been reluctant to lay charges where parents have been put in that position, just because it would probably just add to some of the concerns at home. Instead of charging, we'd probably offer more supportive role. As far as the referral itself goes, officers have to complete like a hybrid brief. It's not a full Crown brief, but a majority of it's there. Copy of the occurrence, copy of notes of the officers that have been involved with the youth. One thing I failed to mention was evidence of the offense. So any scenes of crime, pictures, available video footage, shoplifting and whatnot, as well as statements from the victims and or victim and or witnesses that are available. In the occurrences involving drugs or property-related offenses, we ask that the officer completes a report to a justice, and when available, we hope that a statement from the accused would be obtained. When the referral does come to the office, we have three options in how we can proceed. The first and foremost is if we're going to divert, well, we want to put the youth on a contract, get them on that contract, and diversion's the name of the game. Second option is issuing an office warrant. These are cases where an officer is referred to diversion for a minor theft. Like we've had thefts of like less than $10 where they've decided to refer to diversion. So we might give that youth another opportunity, and everything's all, it all depends on how it was handled at home as well. So if it's possible, we'll issue that warrant at that time. The third option is if the referral is incomplete or the offense is not suitable for diversion, it'll be returned back to the officer, the original officer, for their follow-up and their action. It should be noted that what makes our program a little bit unique is some of the GTA services have coordinators, and they will so if they farm the program out to an outside agency and they find that the youth wasn't successful, the coordinator would get that notification from the agency and then refer it back to the original officer, whereas the detective constables will be laying that charge if need be. So hence why the full brief or the hybrid brief is expected. So how does it work? So once the referral is sent to us, the officer will review it and determine whether or not it's a suitable case and that the referral package is complete. The youth office, either myself or Ilana, would reach out to the family to schedule an intake meeting, and that usually is a 2-hour meeting. During that meeting, we will meet with the youth and their parents. I will speak to them about consequences of criminal behavior, as well as have them walk me through their offense to make sure that they know why they're here, what they did was wrong, and that they are accepting responsibility. And then I turn it over to Ilana, and while Ilana's conducting her assessment, I will start work on the contract. And Ilana will conduct that risk needs assessment. Once she's completed that assessment, we'll meet right after and then determine what interventions we're going to put in play. Normally, like the assessment will dictate what kind of counseling or programming that we should look at. We look to make sure that the consequences are proportionate and where possible involve victim, family, and the community. The contract is in place for 3 months, but there is a caveat. If we find that the youth is not meeting the expectations, we can extend the contract. We can take different action to make sure that the youth is successful, all the way up to laying that charge. So it's best thing to say is we don't just, if the youth is going to, is not successful, we don't just go lead with the charge. We'll try to work with them to try to get them back on track. The other thing too is the program is closely monitored through check-ins, termination meetings. We have contact with the outside agencies as well as officers that are working in the schools or work closely with the youth.
Okay, so this is where I get really excited about our program because, again, as Shawn had mentioned, we're very different from other services. Other services do offer extrajudicial measure programs, but with those programs, they do contract out to, say, John Howard Society or Boys and Girls Club or places like that that will create the contract, monitor it, and then report back whether they're successful. The real benefit for our program, and why we like promoting it, is because the social worker is involved to be able to do the assessment. We can really get a good handle on what's going on for that youth and their family, and we can really make the program for their needs, and it can also be tailor-made to address the offense itself. So therefore, if a youth was, say, caught for shoplifting, we don't necessarily have to just say, okay, you're going to such and such for a shoplifting program. If they were shoplifting and we find out through the assessment that they are, say, grieving the loss of their mother, then we may decide that instead of sending through a shoplifting program, we would send them through to grief counseling as a result. So we really try to get to the underlying behaviors, or the underlying issues. So the contract conditions, they can look very different. We can really get creative sometimes with them. We do work from a restorative justice platform, so we do look for community service work to repair the harm with the community. restitution back to the victim, as well as apology letters, or even sometimes we'll facilitate face-to-face apologies with the victim. There are some street enforceable conditions, keeping the peace and being of good behavior, sometimes abstaining from drugs and alcohol, following parents' rules and expectations. For kids who are struggling with, say, associating with a negative peer group, we may put in that they have to participate in an extracurricular activity that will get them hopefully associated with some more positive peers, or attempt to find part-time employment, which will hopefully keep them busy. And then there's that key component that the social worker is involved with around the counseling, again, because we have various different partners that we work with to address issues, mental health issues, addiction issues, and other sorts of things that we can refer out for the counseling, and so it would be a mandatory component of the contract that they need to participate in the counseling. And we do set these contracts, like this all being said, we do set up the contract for success. We don't set up a contract that we believe a youth will have difficulty achieving. We also want to challenge them and as well, so it's that fine balance. Also, if the youth refuses to participate, it is a voluntary program, so if they refuse to participate in this, then they can it'll be returned back to the officer, and the officer will take action, and that may mean charging. This doesn't happen very often. I think once in the 11 years that I've done one kid said, I'll take my chances in court, but yeah, that would be very rare. So the Halton Youth Justice Program, again, is unique because my role is one that our position is the only position in Ontario that is, we're fully employed by Halton Regional Police, and we're employed for the purpose of the youth office. So during the intake, the social worker will do an assessment with the youth and the family. We use the YLS, so I don't know how many are familiar, but it's the youth level of service case management inventory, and it basically looks at how the individual is fitting with, how they're doing at home with family, what their family system looks like, how their school is working out, what their peer group are like, if there's any substance use issues, mental health issues, or also their strengths and their extracurricular activities, things that are passionate for them. Once I get a handle doing this assessment, then Shawn and I will then consult, and this can help form the contract conditions and any potential community referrals. So, also we do restorative justice circles as well. Every youth office have been trained in restorative justice, and the restorative justice circles provide an opportunity for for the offender, the victim, and supporters to come together to create a solution. And this solution can then become part of the diversion contract.
So shades of gray. This is an interesting slide, actually, because working with youth and working hand in hand with a social worker, I can speak from my personal experience. Police officers have a certain way of doing things, and social workers have their way of doing things. So sometimes you're not butting heads, but sometimes one can be a little bit more headstrong than the other. But I think that the one thing I learned working with Ilana is just communication and actually trying to find a balance between what she's doing and the focus with what police are trying to do. The other piece to this is knowing that some of the behavioral problems that we're seeing as a police officer, you can't really arrest your way out of these things anymore, and that there are supports in place for them to try to get that help so that this doesn't become an ongoing issue.
We are learning some lessons on the way. This program has been in existence, I believe, since 1997, so it's been a long time. But we still continue to learn, and we do learn that program evaluation can be a challenge. Recidivism can mean different things to different people. for a lot of our kids that come through our program, it's they do the one offense, they come through do the contract successfully, and after that, we never hear their names again. For other kids, they're much more criminally involved to begin with. There may be more issues at home or with mental health or addictions. So we're realistic in that the 3 months, we're not going to turn everything around. However, if we can create a 3-month period for that youth to perhaps reduce the severity of their criminal involvement, reduce the involvement with police, following the contract, that is a big success for us, for a lot of those kids. If we can actually start start things for them, get them to feel that they've been successful in that 3-month period, we can get the families feeling some hope and them feeling some hope, and we can start the connections with the community that hopefully the community then will be able to pick it up and take it forward to create more success down the road.
Knowing when to charge and not to charge. This was something I had to learn pretty quick because coming from my position as an offender manager, where you're dealing with offenders that are on bail hearings, undertakings, probation orders, and a zero tolerance approach. So trying to bring that to thinking like diversion contracts, how hard and how easy can this be, right? And I found out pretty quick that after laying a couple charges right off the hop, that maybe if I had known what I know now then, I might not have jumped so quickly to charging. So just learning that was huge. Understanding that the background and life experience that some of these youth are going through are affecting their behavior, and it's not necessarily a black and white. There's a lot of gray to this.
So generally we get some really great feedback from parents who feel like this has been a great opportunity for them to learn and for their youth to learn. Great feedback from community partners who are working collaboratively with us, as well as the youth themselves who felt like they've been given a second chance. And officers have really liked the program because it addresses the issue in a and actually gets justice sometimes to the victim even faster than it would through the court process. Past that, I guess that's coming to the end of our presentation. Does anyone have any questions? Anyone? Yeah. Yep.
Take the first one?
Yeah.
So as far as addressing the question about police, this role is very, I find it's a very administrative role. I find that the true impact with officer and youth intervention and kind of collaboration comes with, I don't hate to say it, high school officers. I know that Toronto, anyone from Toronto, lost all their high school officers. That's a huge kick to the pants there. The officers have a great rapport with the kids, good or bad, and it's something like, so this role, I have interaction on some of the events, like I volunteer to play basketball with the kids and stuff like that, but that's not the sole purpose of the role. The best intervention is the officers that are in the schools, even with the elementary students and that.
I think you sell yourself a little short in a way, Shawn, as well, though, because in our meeting, within that 3 months, when that youth does experience the success, and they are doing better, and every time they come in and meet with us, they meet with an officer who's very engaging, who's willing to listen, who's who's not judging a book by its cover,
Funny.
who's funny, yes, very. So I think that and I think through the whole process that youth experience comes out with a positive experience. So then our hope is that they take that forward into all their further connections with officers down the road. And there's some education pieces we do around kind of how we think that a relationship between an officer and a youth would be better, should go, right? And we try to model that in our work with them. The other part you were asking about, how to determine whether they participate in the program or not, is that, yeah. So a lot of it depends on the offense, on the offense itself. So there's certain offenses that we will take and certain ones that we won't. We do take a lot. We are probably, again, because we do a lot in-house, we're probably a lot more, we can afford to be a lot more flexible than other services who may contract out. So we do take, like shoplifting, mischief. We'll take minor assaults. We'll take drug-related offenses. So there's certain ones of that. But if they start getting into, assault caused bodily harm, or things that are just a little bit more serious that need that extra court involvement, then that's one of the deciding factors. The other piece, I guess, is the youth does have to accept responsibility. So if they're coming and they accept responsibility, they demonstrate some sort of remorse, although we do recognize that can sometimes be flexible with youth. But at least they are accepting accountability and they're willing to participate, then we'll take them in. Also, it's usually a first-time kind of program. Like this is kind of, once they've already completed the diversion program, most of the time we don't offer another chance. So that can change if the youth was like 12 years old and shoplifted something and 4 years later is caught with drugs. We may look at having them through the diversion program again. However, if they just finished the contract and they went out and shoplifted again or something, we may say, okay, they haven't learned what they need to learn, and then it's a gradual process, right? So does that answer your question? Great. Any others? How many youth have? Oh,
I think we're in the 50s.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Sorry, we didn't bring stats.
Yeah.
Stu, do you know? Did you? I don't know.
Here, I'm gonna just touch it. So our youth office will also take just referrals for work with Ilana. Not necessarily does it have to be a criminal offense. We'll entertain trying to help parents with supports in the community as well. So that's where the numbers all get kind of muddled. Like a referral's a referral. So.
Yes.
So under the YCJA, you're not found criminally liable until 12. It's 12 to 17 is the criminal liability. So that's where, if you're holding a youth accountable through the diversion, that's where he can be brought to court at that point. That's not to say that if there are troubling behaviors, Ilana would take referrals of youth from our ESLOs.
I do work with, I do interventions with kids age younger, and particularly schools, school social workers, a lot of them will reach out to me and say, like, I've got this young kid, he's definitely going to be involved when he turns 12 if we don't do something right now. So then a lot of times that's when I'll partner with the school social workers or other community agencies to try to wrap around that youth then. So we don't put them through the Halton Youth Justice Program per se, but I do work with them, and I do carry a caseload of youth that are range in age. Sure. Yeah.
Better run.
Oh.
Run.
I know she.
Oh.
One more question. I'm sorry, I can't. Other examples of underlying issues? Yeah. So a lot of the kids we see, they've experienced that there's trauma. There's a lot of trauma background involved. A lot of even just physical health issues. A lot of mental health issues. There's been sexual assault. A lot of learning disabilities that maybe have gone, like, by the time they come through to me, they haven't been addressed properly. A lot of the learning, we have things like a lot of FASD kids that are kids with FASD that are coming through our program. Many over the years. Yeah, and a lot of family, a lot of deep-seated, like, family dynamic issues that are brought forward. So.
Please join me in thanking Ilana and Shawn. Thank you.